Hey everyone. First off, I'd like to apologize for the delay in getting out another video. Since we moved to Texas, we've had quite a few family and friends come and visit our new home. With the holidays and all the visitors and guests here, it kind of made it difficult to film new content, much less edit a new video. Some new things are going to be happening in 2019. I got a big unboxing coming. I got some new tools, and there's going to be some serious video and woodworking and wood shop content that I'm going to hopefully get out relatively soon. In the next couple of weeks, I've got a nice new big tool coming. I got a new planer, which is going to help with a lot of these projects. Things in 2019 are going to be moving pretty quickly, I think. As you can tell, I'm dressed and ready for my day job. So I'm gonna head off to that, and I hope you enjoy this video of my router juice groove jig that I built. There's gonna be a link in the description below to King's Fine Woodworking. Thank you for them for this tutorial. I made it off of his plans. It's a phenomenal tool, and please subscribe, hit that like button down below. It just really helps me out knowing that there's enough interest for them out there. And I will see you in the next video. Thanks a lot. See ya. So for this next project, I decided to build a juice groove jig. What this does is it allows me to easily cut juice grooves into wood cutting boards that I've been building. This jig will make sure that my depths are always the same, the distance from the edges are always the same, and it makes work with the router quite a bit easier. So what I'm doing here is laying out where the T-tracks are going to go, and then I'm going to use my dado on my table saw to cut in the slots for these T-tracks. The T-tracks are standard tracks that you would buy at any woodworking shop. They're, if I believe my measurements are right, they're 3/4 of an inch wide. And then you set your depth on the dado, and cut your slots in, and you'll see how those get laid out here in a couple of minutes. So there's going to be 4 fences. There's a front fence, a right fence, and a top fence, which are all adjustable. And then there's a left fence, which is fixed. Each fence consists of 3 pieces. The bottom wider piece is the slide, and then I have 2 1-inch strips that are stacked on top of each other in order to make up the fence rail. The distance between the rails and the edge of the slide is 2 inches, so that gives me a distance of about 3 inches in order to take up the width of my router base, so that my router blade is 3/4 of an inch to an inch on the inside of my cutting boards. Since each one of these fence pieces is an inch wide, I just used 2 of them in order to give me my 2-inch gap, so that I would put the 3rd piece down and I knew I had my measurements all correct. This design I actually got from King's Fine Woodworking. You'll find a link to his video in the description down below. I did make one modification, and you'll see how my fence hangs over the edge of my slide about 1.5 inches, 1 3/4. His design, it stopped at the edge of the slide. I decided to have it hang over, and you'll see once I install this onto the board my reasonings for that. It might not be totally necessary. The gap that you would have in the corners, the router really wouldn't run into that gap very much, but it kind of gave me a little bit of peace of mind, and it also helped me make sure things are all nice and square. So here I'm going to do the last piece, I believe this one is, and then we will get to mounting the T-track into the base. So since the T-track is just aluminum, if you take it nice and slow, you can cut aluminum with a chop saw with a standard blade. I think I've just got a standard cross-cut blade there. After cutting all the T-track down, I rounded off the edges with a hand file, and then I slid them into their perspective spots, making sure that each one had
a screw hole that went as close to the edge as possible, and then I just used the screws that came with the kit. These screws are going into holes that have been pre-drilled as well as countersunk, so they're nice and smooth. Since I am putting these T-tracks into 3/4 inch plywood, the screws are a little bit long, and you're not going to see video of this process, but I have the base lifted off the workbench and the screw tips came through maybe a 1/16 of an inch, and I just used my angle grinder, ground those down real quick. Since this is a tool, I'm not really concerned about the looks of it, and that worked out just fine. Here I'm going to dry fit the fences to make sure everything's smooth and it all works the way I expect it to work, and it does. So you'll see how that fence overhangs a little bit. Each one of them overhangs onto the one next to it, which works out just fine since they only slide in certain directions and the edges never will really run into each other. Now that I know the placement works after the dry fit, I'm going to take these fence pieces over to my router and I'm going to cut the grooves in them in order to accept the T-track bolts. Right now I'm going to use a 3/8 inch router bit in order to cut this slot. The slot will go almost the whole length of this piece, and then the T-nut will slip inside that slot and allow this fence to move from side to side. Now that we have that slot completed, I'm going to fix this one on here, and you'll see that this one can slide right to left because of that slot we cut, and it also can slide up and down because of the T-tracks. Once this one is secure, I'll flip it around and we will work on the other side. The top fence piece just goes along the T-tracks that you see there, and it goes up and down. So I'm just going to simply drill 2 holes that the T-nuts are going to fit in, and they're going to slide on that track. And then the last bit is going to be to secure the left fence. And the left fence is just going to be screwed down since it does not move. So it's the next day. Now I am going to put in my cutting board. I did not record the actual routing of the juice groove on the cutting board. Mainly that's because I ran into some issues. Of course, nothing works right the first time. But the juice groove jig worked really well. The problem I ran into was I didn't really have the right router bit, and I was being a little hesitant, and so it ended up catching on a corner. It darkened the wood and basically burned the wood a little bit, and that kind of frustrated me, and so I just was not in the mood to record. But once it was all done, got some serious elbow grease into the sanding. Boy, yeah, that's the one thing I don't like about woodworking, honestly, is sanding, especially when you're having to sand by hand. But the end result is just gorgeous.
This is all food grade mineral oil. Perfectly safe. You could drink it if you wanted to. Can't imagine it tastes very good, but perfectly safe. You can pick this up at any woodworking store. Most places such as let's see, like Crate and Barrel, Bed Bath & Beyond even sells this type of stuff. It's just, normal food grade mineral oil. This is enriched with vitamin E. Another product I also use for conditioning, maybe a couple years after you've had the board, is this one that's got natural wax in it. Gives it a little more glossy of a shine. This will be a little flatter after it dries. but I use both on my cutting boards, just depending on the condition of them. With my current cutting board, it's obviously I've only had it for a short period of time, but with one of our bamboo cutting boards, we've had it for a couple of years. I just brought it up to the garage, sanded it with some 320 grit sandpaper, take out a lot of those big scratches from the knives, and then I put the mineral oil wax combination on it, and the thing looks brand new.
Thanks for watching. If you'd hit that like button, that'd be awesome. And stick around for more videos as I come up with more projects to do. And feel free to leave comments. I love reading them, and I'll talk to you next time. Thanks. See ya.